Are you guys ready for RAM slash computers, actually, just computers, electronics, things like that, to just become part of the luxury class? Technically, they're a luxury already to some. However, for many that work in offices, work from home, other things like that, they're a necessity. And unfortunately, they're under threat, if you will. The price is under threat, under attack by not a nationwide, as far as I understand it, an international, so a worldwide RAM shortage due to the mass demand the mass demand for RAM, just straight up. I was going to say of memory and trying to get into all that. We don't need that. Mass demand for RAM. And of course, we don't have enough facilities, as we've learned during COVID with microcontroller shortages and everything else. So this is the web news, and we're going to be talking about this week. So, Mike, you have an article and some other things already set up. I don't really have usually I have a specific question to ask in the web news or a specific blurb. I don't have that today just because I feel like we're just going to run with whatever the news is because this is some hot stuff.
Yeah, I would say this is fairly breaking. Over the last couple weeks, I would say we have been seeing the trend going very quickly up in terms of RAM pricing in the consumer market. And now I think it's just accelerating exponentially at this point. If you look at my screen, I'll make the text a little bit bigger. You can see a chart there, and we'll get into charts a little bit more in depth in a bit, but that's a pretty exponential curve going up, and that's essentially where RAM pricing is right now. So I just wanted to discuss really where we're heading as an industry, as a society, if this continues, right? If the demand for AI, which is the reason that the RAM is rapidly going up, continues to outpace the manufacturing, which it seems to be like that's the trend that's happening right now. What will happen to consumer computing? That's really the discussion that I want to have. And I'll read a little bit of this article here. I'll read the first section. I will link the article in the show notes. So please go in, give this one a read because it's actually a very good summarization of what's happened. It's a short one, not a long one, so you can get a good understanding. But the idea is, I'll just read it right off the top. Memory price inflation comes for us all, and if you're not affected yet, just wait. So I was building a new PC last month using some parts I had bought earlier this year. The 64 gigabyte T-Create DDR5 memory kit used to cost $209. This was what, last month? Today, the kit costs $650. That is over a 3x increase. Just in the past week, we found out Raspberry Pi is increasing their single board computer pricing. Micron, this is a big one, is killing the crucial brand of RAM and storage devices completely, meaning that there's one fewer consumer memory manufacturer. Samsung can't even buy RAM for themselves to build their own smartphones.
From themselves, from Samsung. Samsung can't buy from Samsung.
Yeah, Samsung can't buy from Samsung to build their own smartphones. And small vendors like Libra Computer and Mono are seeing RAM prices double, triple, or even worse. And they're not even buying the latest RAM tech. So these companies are buying a generation old, and they're still seeing these crazy prices, right? So I probably don't need to read much further. That's the basis of this entire discussion, really. What I do want to do is quickly show you the graphs across the board. Although, to be honest, if you're seeing the screen right now, this is how they all look to different variations. The lower tier RAM, the DDR4 RAM, the older RAM, it's only slightly going up in terms of pricing, but it's still pretty exponential in terms of the time that it took to get there. But the latest RAM, DDR5, the RAM that's being sold right now, is seeing a crazy spike up, and that's what we're seeing here in this picture. So with that being said, we've kind of laid it out for you. This is the new reality. All of these small companies like Raspberry Pi, Libra Computer, Mono are not able to hoard RAM, so their prices are going up right now, like immediately. Some companies are able to drastically hoard the RAM from before, and they're able to slowly go up in price to not shock the consumer right off the bat. But the reality is that every piece of technology that uses RAM, which is pretty much every computer, microcontroller, anything, GPU, integrated system, anything that has an integrated system like a cell phone, embedded processor, will need some sort of RAM.
Cars.
Everything is going to go up in price. Yeah, cars for sure. And doesn't seem to be a respite. Like there's this, whatever. I don't know where this is going to end. So I'm going to pass it off to you, Matt, on your thoughts on where you think like the first effect of this is going to start hitting after the immediate one that we're seeing now with like obviously these smaller manufacturers getting hit hard.
We're seeing it in right now in what I would call almost the custom PC space, where obviously if you're going and you're directly purchasing RAM, you're definitely seeing this because you're like, I bought RAM, I think it was approximately 2 years ago. It was 105 or something along those lines. That same RAM, I think it was, don't quote me on this, I believe it was 329.99. I just randomly checked that exact same RAM. In just 2 years, it's more or less tripled approximately. Not good. This is not fancy RAM. You might say, oh, you're a custom PC guy, you have RGB, all these things. I do not on my RAM. My RAM is literally just black heat sink, says T-Force on it. There's 2 sticks, that's it. So right now we're getting affected there. Raspberry Pi, I'd consider in the same thing because a lot of like indie hackers or people that like to play with computers, they use Raspberry Pis. Education, I still consider that kind of custom PC stuff. The reason why I distinguish is because if you go to Best Buy or things like that, I sent you a computer just last night, Mike, where I said, hey, this is an incredible deal. There was a Lenovo computer on sale there. It was one of those Copilot Plus PCs with an ARM processor. $650 Canadian, which is an incredible deal. And there's going to be some concessions, like concessions there. Screen's not the top of the line, this and that. Thing is, someone's a general user and wants good battery life. That thing boasts 30 hours battery life, at least on the box. And that's an incredible deal just for word processing, doing stuff on the web, cloud computing, even some coding, anything that you can do on ARM, because I know there's going to be some compatibility stuff for sure. That's incredible. Here's the thing. That hasn't been affected yet, or at least not enough that I've noticed it, right? When I was looking just recently for an SD card, I needed an SD card, and I noticed that always on Black Friday, there's always incredible deals on SD cards. And I looked around and there's all these like big $20 off, $50 off, $100 off, what have you. I found one really killer deal with a shockproof SanDisk Extreme, blah, 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 all this. It was like $125 off. It was like the one really good deal. And I ended up snatching that up. But then I was telling my friend, I was like, yeah, take a look at this. And he said, man, he's like, that's a really good price with the RAM like shortage issue. And I was like, oh, what do you mean? And because I hadn't been following this, because I hear and we hear, woe is me. Every single time there's a bump, if something goes up at 10%, it's, oh my God, everything's over. But this is not 10%. This is an exponential curve and a problem that is continuing to perpetuate. And so what does this mean? I think GPUs were flying high again. They were up pretty high. They came back down recently to close to MSRP, if not MSRP. They need RAM, so they're going to go back up naturally. So RAM's up, GPUs are going to go back up. So that's more of the custom building space. But then you have to think about, okay, I mentioned that $650 pre-built little laptop. Lenovo, I don't know their stock levels and things, but Lenovo and Samsung and these big manufacturers, they can obviously buy in bulk, and so they save money to some extent. However, they also probably have a stock of stuff. They'll have 150 million RAM sticks in stock or something in a warehouse so that they can easily put them into 5 or 6 different computer builds that they have. The problem now is that once those stocks run out and they need to buy, we're seeing the price go up. Obviously, the prices are way up. But I've also read articles that even places who make huge orders, like B2B, huge orders, not small computer shops, they're only receiving 70% of the RAM that they actually ordered. They order 10 RAM sticks, they get 7. I've also seen another article that stated that a lot of AI data centers, which is what's eating up all this RAM, they're starting to, or they've reportedly anyway, agreed to pay 50% above MSRP. And so now it's okay. So there you go. So right away, like assuming that's correct, like again, this is not like a news show where I'm checking 800 sources, but assuming that what I've read was correct, then okay. So even if it went up 50, but it's not going up 50, like going from 100 to $150 for RAM sucks, but PC parts go up and down all the time. And you might be able to make that back by, oh, I got $50 off my case because it was Black Friday, or I got a clearance model case, or I got a floor model case, or other parts. CPU goes on sale, things like that. So you'll be able to make up that $50, making up 150, $250. And by the way, it didn't just stop here. I'm talking about my RAM tripling. it doesn't have to stop at triple. There's no law that says it tripled so it can stop. What if it goes up to 700, 800? What if it becomes the most expensive component? But then GPUs are going to come back. So now we're talking about it's affecting the custom guys, the custom built things, and then it's affecting the pre-built market as well. So like the general consumer stuff. But then, of course, we have cars that have computers in them that are massively expensive. We already suffered during COVID a microcontroller shortage. And I've been told by some that it has recovered. I've been told by others that it has not. I have not done research into this. This is just chatter from some friends that have bought cars or have been searching for cars. At the end of the day, if GM, if Toyota, if all these other big car manufacturers decide, or not decide, if they need RAM and they go to buy it and they have to pay more, they're going to pass that cost likely down to the consumer. And so then cars are going to have to go up. And we've had crises before, like the microcontroller shortage, but this is something where AI is not slowing down. It is everywhere. The demand is way up. And also, we have another problem. If it slows down suddenly, like if it just all of a sudden next month slows down, not due to a technological evolution, but due to a bubble being popped, because everyone says it's the AI bubble, maybe the RAM price will come down. But so will everything else because the economy is going to take a hit. And so now we have this interweaved, very complex disaster of a thing. This is on the coattails of like many people having an affordability of living crisis. So now we have this whole problem where people are like spending over half, sometimes even like 80, 90% of their money just on their rent, right? The food has gone way up and things like that. If the computers that the truckers use that to bring the food in goes up, they're going to raise the price on food again. This is a multi-level problem. I don't have a timeline on any of this stuff. This is just me more or less thinking out loud with having read some of these articles and things over the past few days. But I'll say this from a personal note is I find, okay, one, this proves right away that these companies are only about profit if we already didn't know that, because they're not like, hey, we better keep the home PCs alive. It's, we want to go to the guy who's paying us more money. We got to go to the people who are buying 2 bajillion RAM sticks. That's where we're at. And so they're going to this like B2B market to get that money, to get that level of cash. And so there's no, hey, we need to preserve the consumer compute PC. We don't know what it's going to do. Not their problem. This is that same thing we had. This is the same conversation basically we had in principle with the junior developers, where some people say, what do you mean that companies aren't going to train these junior developers? It's going to ruin the industry. Every single company is going to think, I'm not going to be the one that invests money. It is not my responsibility to train these junior developers. If the market collapses, then the market collapses, but I need to make money now. I need to make my money for my investors now. If my investors ask me, hey, why are you 10% behind everybody else in the market in profitability? And I say, oh, it's because I'm training developers that may not continue to work here because developers hop jobs a lot. They may not continue to work here. They may go elsewhere, but I'm trying to do it for the longevity of the trade of this market. They're going to be, what are you talking about? Get that other 10%. What do you mean? And now you need 15% because you just messed up a quarter, right? Like it's like that. That's what's going to happen. And two, so that was my first point. And number two is I am pretty fatigued personally at not being allowed to, and this is a selfish one, not being allowed to enjoy anything. I feel like AI came on the scene, everyone started freaking out, and then we have a bunch of like problems with AI and people are like anti-AI. That's at least what I hear all the time on my personal side. And so it's okay. So I was like pretty excited for AI as a kid because the idea of it, the sci-fi-ness of it. Now it shows up and it's, oh, that's bad. So it's okay. And some of these are legitimate arguments. I'm not saying AI is perfect. But now it's, oh, okay, so I can't talk about AI. Okay, cool. But I have to use it for work, so I'm just going to use it for work and not really talk about it, not be excited about it. And now they're coming for the computers. So I don't know if I'm like a depression. I'm definitely a pessimist sometimes, 100%. And I'm definitely an all in or all out. I'm just like, what, take that money then, take it. Like, why not steal that? I get it, whatever. Not steal it, but if a company sees I have $10 in my wallet, they want that $10. That's what I mean, right? Like I feel like as consumers, we're running out of money. I'm running out of money as well, like everybody else. I'm also getting sick of this. Like I'm just getting sick of not being able to enjoy or celebrate anything. Maybe that's a personal problem. Maybe that's a social media problem. I don't know. Maybe it's something else. But this is how I feel every time I see something like this. Because I immediately want to shut it down. Because if I dig deep into the RAM issue, now I'm like, down on everything. I'm scared to use my computers. I'm babying all my stuff. And it's, I don't know. That Mike, you take it away. What do you think about all that? There's a loaded, like, little bit of a rant, but this is the web news.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this one like invokes emotion because you and I are both kind of tech heads. We like tech, and this is coming after that for us because just let's go back to what we talked about with Micron, right? Getting out of the industry, removing Crucial from the equation. Crucial was one of the, or Micron was one of the, I think, 3 companies that were actually making RAM for consumers.
Yeah, they make DRAM or something. I watched a breakdown of it, but there's not many manufacturers of different RAMs and whatever.
Yeah, like Samsung, Micron, and there's another one like Hijinx or something like that. I can't remember. But regardless, there's 3 or 4 different RAM manufacturers for consumers. Though we just lost one, and it's during the time of most inflation we've ever seen on RAM, I'm pretty sure. If you're looking at the screen that I'm sharing right now, I'm showing you the timeline for RAM pricing. This is DDR5, like the latest RAM. Everything is stable all the way up until end of September. And then end of September, we're seeing like a gradual increase. This isn't exponential, this is linear. The exponential stuff is starting to happen like end of October, November. And then in November, it's just literally a straight line up.
Yeah, late
Like,
November.
I don't even know if this is exponential. If you just look at just this little block here, which is in November, like middle of November, this is a straight line up around 220 to close to $400. That's a doubling in a day.
And that's USD over the last 18 months. And what is that? 5,200 megahertz?
Yeah, 5,200, like one of the latest RAMs, like one of the more expensive ones. There's more expensive ones down here, and the better it is, the higher the price point that it went up, for sure.
Although
But
weirdly, the 5600, like the DDR5 5600, and that's 2x 16 gigabytes, it cooled. It exponentially went up, and then it cooled. Just strange.
I mean, they're all cooling those last couple of few days.
Oh, I guess that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
I didn't see that.
Yeah. They all went up exponentially in that one time, or maybe linear. I don't even know what to call this line up. Like this looks just like a straight jump. It's probably exponential, especially at the curve that you're seeing here. But regardless, it's quite crazy to see something double in price essentially overnight. That's what we're seeing happen. Something so crucial, and not pun not intended, to all of a sudden be like out of reach for a lot of people. Like doubling from 200 to 400, that makes a computer build more difficult. And then, like you said, the effect that it has on graphics cards is not to be overstated, because there's already some rumors that NVIDIA is now shipping graphics cards without RAM to its board partners because they can't source the RAM. So the board partners themselves have to source the RAM and put it on the graphics cards themselves, which they can't do either, because obviously this affects graphics cards more than anything. So we're going to see a doubling of RAM prices, and probably realistically a doubling of graphics cards prices, because the demand is just outrageous. And it's tough to, like, the problem here is that these companies like Micron, right? They're seeing the profit margins on their AI chips, right? Like their AI sector, their B2B AI sector, being exponentially more than their consumer sector. And from a business decision, especially from a temporary business decision, it's almost stupid to serve the consumer when you could double or triple the amount of money you make on the same chips with on the AI side.
So that's exactly that thing I was saying. They don't have any, they don't care about who they sustain. They care about sustaining their own wallet. There is no, oh, we better keep the consumers in check at least a little bit, only have it double in price, which is something that, again, they could recover from a sale on another part. They don't care about that. And I'm not saying that they should either, but.
Well, like, that's an argument to be made, though, because when and if the bubble maybe doesn't pop or just slows down, in my opinion, this is, again, a completely my opinion, I don't think there's going to be a bubble pop because of the ramifications on the economy. I think that the bubble will contract. That's how it's going to work. And I think it'll just get slightly smaller until it becomes a little bit more sustainable. Still outrageous, but probably more sustainable. Some of the outliers around the bubble will collapse because of the contraction. But realistically, I think the demand for AI isn't really going to go down much due to what we're seeing. Like, I'm in the trenches with AI right now. It's gotten better. Like, it's gotten significantly better in the last 6 months. I can tell you that from a coding perspective, from an image generation perspective, it is way better in the last 6 months.
I agree with the coding one for sure. I definitely use it to work through problems, and it's way better.
Way better. And the image generation is bonkers. I don't know if you've tried the new Gemini model. It's arguably indistinguishable from a real image
A little scary. I've been playing
in
with
almost
Sora
like
a little bit. I haven't been playing with that.
yes, Sora's okay. It's a cool piece of tech, but the actual Nano Banana Pro 3, whatever they call it, crazy name from Google, the image generation model is again an exponential leap over their previous Nano Banana model. It's both faster and significantly better at everything it did before. So there's certain elements of AI that's actually getting exponentially better. There's certain elements of AI that's definitely stagnated. Like I think general agentic use, like computer use, has been the same for a while. Like, so if you're trying to get the AI to use your computer to do something cool, it hasn't really gotten better. You can still get it to do certain things here and there, browse the web, research and stuff like that, but it can't do some complex tasks. And that's been the case for a while now, as far as I can tell, at least with my testing. Say certain elements of how you like interact with the AI, ChatGPT, if you're just using it for general consumer use and not coding, it hasn't really gotten much better. So you can see from the general public point of view, they're like, oh, it's stagnated. Like it's stopped getting better. Therefore, this bubble will collapse any minute now. I get that sentiment, but from a prosumer point of view, from someone that's using the actual elements of AI that are getting significantly better, I don't see that happening because the elements that are getting significantly better are very important. If it can code better and better, it will replace an industry and it will also augment everything else, right? If it can all of a sudden create a quick mini application to do X job with the coding abilities that it has, right? Like it will use that in an agentic way, create a mini application, do the job, and then remove that application after if it needs to. So it getting better at coding actually does make it better at other things once it reaches a certain point. And it's the same thing with like image generation. If it can get better at image generation or better like the way it has, that means that it's going to replace a lot of the design, a lot of the creativity, a lot of industries are going to be replaced by it.
I think there's something to be said here too. You're talking about the bubble popping. I think
Yeah.
the consumer end totally makes sense. I also think that on the investor end, it makes sense to an extent as well, because it feels like just yesterday, but it wasn't, that, oh my God, a company hit $1 trillion. And then another one hit $1 trillion and another one. This was not that long ago, realistically. And I can't remember when the first one was. Was it Amazon or Apple or something? But it was recent.
It was Apple.
You know, it was semi-recent.
Apple.
I'm looking at Nvidia Corp here. It's now worth $4.46 trillion. So now we're just throwing $1 trillion around like crazy. And the reason why I bring up Nvidia is because Nvidia is kind of at the forefront of providing tech for these AI data centers and these AI things. So for example, I'm just looking at the Google chart here, having just typed in Nvidia stock price. I sorted it to 5 years, and looking at the zoomed out view, the lowest it is, just again, roughly, it looks like it's $94.31 US on April 4th of this year, so 2025. And it just goes up and up and up and up and up and up. And then today, right now, as I read this, we're talking about $183.38 US per share, a big thing. And we haven't seen a shakeup like this in quite a while. Like obviously there's things that hit the stock market in general, but in terms of tech, it's like we kept getting making computers better. Like I was talking to my one friend, he's a big computer enthusiast. And one of the things I said that was crazy is I said, I get video games requiring better and better hardware, better graphics, especially things like that. Having a better monitor, that'll tax the game, but it'll also tax the computer. But I was talking to him and I said, it's crazy to me that for the last, let's say 20 years, many people have required like Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, and then a half decent internet browsing experience. For the past 20 years, the internet browsing experience, obviously the need has gone up, but we've just kept shipping them more and more expensive computers and making better and better processors to do the exact same thing. It's, dude, I could make the same report that I would make today on Microsoft Word 20 years ago versus today. I'm sure there'd be some formatting things and there'd be some specific nuance, but in terms of, let's just say I need to write a report, write it. Not doing a bunch of fancy things. I don't need Copilot in there. And so that leads me to my point, is that my friend said, we start filling it with garbage. We start, not necessarily garbage, but we start like really throwing things into our thing. So even though this person is still just word processing, which is such a simple concept these days, that we do it up in the web now, largely, right? But the whole point is that now it's like, we'll throw Copilot in there. We'll throw automatic cloud syncing in there. We'll throw this in there. We'll throw that in there. And there's all these like little extra features that come in and start to, and then it's, oh my God, now the computer needs to like not only write this text, but it also needs to contextually understand things. It's trying to do autocomplete. It's trying to do autocorrect. It's trying to do this. It's trying to do that. But it's just crazy to me that we kept selling more and more expensive computers. However, my point is, AI is a big jump, in my opinion. It is a big change. Like I was talking about just tacking things on, including chat, which is part of AI, the autocorrect and all those things pre-AI. We're just tacking things onto Word to make it, a better value add, whatever. And maybe the computer needs a better processor. But the end task that's being accomplished by the user is virtually the same. And so that's why it's kind of, man, like, why do we, back in the day, you had a single core, then you had a dual core, but you're still producing the same reports. What's going on here? And it's because you need to run all these extra features. Now AIs come in and it's more than just tacking on a feature, because AI has invaded that word space, that Microsoft Word space. It's also invaded all the other Office apps like Excel and PowerPoint. But hang on, there's also social media that it's invaded. Oh, it's also invaded some web stuff. Oh, it's also invading code things. Like, when's the last shakeup that's been like this? We've just been looking at more power, better graphics, faster things, SSDs. Like, SSDs were probably the biggest shakeup. And it was such a gradual thing where SSDs were great. Like, Windows needed to do all this stuff. So it was like, when you had Windows 10, largely it was very slow on a hard drive, very slow to boot up and things. And there was ways to get it to stop doing things, but basically it's checking your location. It's doing this, it's doing that, it's doing all these things. And so it's okay, people start going onto SSDs. But gamers were like, I'll go have an SSD for my computer, for my OS, but I'll have a hard drive for my game. And then the games start requiring the faster transfer speeds. And so SSDs get bigger SSDs, like 1 terabyte and 500 gig and all that. They start becoming more popular with people. And so then the whole computer, all the storage on a computer becomes solid state. That's a gradual adoption, very gradual. Windows, as far as I understand it, is still compatible with a hard drive. So you could still do a hard drive, gradual. And I still use mechanical hard drives for archive storage, things that I throw away and be like, I might access this once a year, a seasonal thing or something. But here's the thing is AI was not that. AI, I understand, like, for the enthusiasts, like maybe it started 10 years ago or whatever. But from the consumer perspective, from seeing it everywhere, 1.5, 2 years, that is not only is that a huge shakeup in the computing space, it's also invaded everything. It invaded those traditional tools. It's invaded new tools. It's invented new tools. It's coding things for itself. This is a huge shakeup. And so issues like this RAM shortage, some might say, are understandable. I don't like it. I think to me, it's, hey, why don't we just make another RAM factory? And then the answer always is easier said than done, Matt. And my answer always is, I didn't ask if it was easy.
I think okay, so I'll get to the point of this episode right now because we're running at pretty long points. But I think and what you're hitting at is exactly the point. There is work being done to create more supply, for sure. I think we have a limited amount of resources and knowledge to accelerate the supply to meet the demand for the next quite significant amount of time. Like, the reason I think, and this is completely speculation, that Micron decided to exit the consumer space is because they're seeing what is going to happen next year, essentially. These NVIDIA GPUs are starting to get old. The 4090 or like the 4090 class, whatever, H100s or whatever, are starting to get old, right? These things have to be replaced to keep up with tech probably once every 3 years. And there's a mass amount of them out there
Right.
already. Those GPUs are going to need to be replaced probably next year, realistically, with whatever NVIDIA comes out with. So every RAM manufacturer is going to be vying for supply contracts to be able to provide RAM for those GPUs that need to be replaced every 3 years. And it's going to take us a significant amount of time because we're still trying to expand our infrastructure. We don't have enough power to fund actually the data center stuff. Like, we have GPUs sometimes. We don't have enough power. We have power. We don't have enough GPUs. There is a supply crisis across the board right now for these data centers to be able to power the compute required to run AI. And it doesn't look like we're going to get much efficiency gains because every efficiency gain that we're going to get is going to be turned into power. So when we gain efficiency, NVIDIA will just increase the amount of power you're able to supply to the GPU. That's why the GPUs are getting bigger and bigger, to be able to then provide more compute. And like, people are saying, like, oh, you're not factoring in the efficiency gains. I am factoring in the efficiency gains. I think I am, because the more efficiency, the more power you can throw at it, and therefore the more power we need in the grid, and therefore the more GPUs we need. It's an I don't see the cycle ending until we solve the supply issue, which I think we'll solve. But the reason that I made the title "The End of the Consumer Computing as We Know It" is I do think that for the next year or two, at least, maybe 3 years, we might be in a spot where cell phones are difficult to manufacture, where personal computers become difficult to manufacture.
And then
Therefore,
we'll increase in price.
they will increase in price exponentially, or just not be manufactured. Like, we could see major players in the game, Pixels, for example, or whatever. There could be major players that can't afford to make Pixels because they're making them to double the cost what they are now, and they're selling them for double the cost they are now, and people aren't buying them because they don't have double the money. So, like, this could happen in the next 3 years if there's no other recourse for what's going on. Now, like, there's other things that people will do, and I don't want to get too far into it, but like, you'll be able to salvage your electronics. The H100s will probably go in and be resold to other companies, smaller companies and stuff like that. There will be this like kind of recycling aspect of this AI boom that hasn't been factored in yet either. So I don't know what that's going to look like. But regardless, we know that the top tier frontier models are going to require a massive amount of compute on the latest compute, and they're going to need to update them fairly frequently. So that RAM is just being thrown in to those right now. And I can't blame the companies for going that route, but it might end up biting them in the ass at the end of the day, because they're going to lose a lot of consumer respect if Micron decides to come back as crucial into the industry. And there's other competitors out there. I would hope that people would be like, oh, I'm not going to buy them because they kind of screwed us in that one time. I could be wrong on that. Consumers are finicky, but that's the risk that they take.
Well, here's the thing, though, Mike, is
that
I was talking to you about that crucial thing, is that if we were back in the days of no e-commerce and everybody was in a retailer and the retailer felt screwed over, like the retailer was the king. Now, that's not having one king and is not the greatest. Hence, we have multiple retailers. The list goes on. The point is that if the retailer was in charge and Crucial was like, I'm pulling all this, and Crucial, let's say, held really premium spacing, meaning literally placement on shelves, on good looking shelves, good looking displays in the store, and these stores are like, hey, these are my number one RAM or whatever, or these are my really big sellers for me, and you're going to do this right now? No worries, Crucial. When you come back, you're going in the closet, and someone's going to have to ask us like for crucial parts, or we're not gonna have crucial parts. That's because the retailers back then were like the king. Now Crucial could just be like, I'm gonna open up a Shopify store. Like, really? And
Okay.
and if RAM is suddenly cheaper for them, if this exponential curve continues, or even if it continues to increase to some extent, then people are gonna go, sorry, but people are going to go buy the Crucial RAM because it's cheaper. That's just the reality behind it. Like, I understand that the social medias will be like, boycott them, cool. But not everyone's inspecting everyone's computers. And if somebody needs RAM, they're probably just going to go with the cheapest, most reliable option, or a reliable option, whatever. Right? I don't know how reliable Crucial is. I don't use Crucial, but
I think you're right in the sense that it would have bigger impact, but I don't know if Crucial would care at this point, even with that.
because they would make like $1 billion or whatever from this.
That's what I'm like. I think that the overwhelming amount of money that they can make with the same supply on the AI side is so much more that it just doesn't make any sense to supply the consumer side because they would still be making a profit on the consumer side, but they would essentially be doing it out of the goodness of their heart, quote unquote, like hedging their bets against the AI bubble. But they're not seeing the AI bubble going away. Like, they've made the calculation that people are saying the AI bubble is going to pop. From their perspective, they looked into it, they did their research, whatever. They're like, it's not. And therefore, why would we even bother with this? So I see that. Like, I see both sides. It sucks for us as consumers. I think it's going to be a rough go of it again after we just got back to normalcy from the COVID stuff. I don't want to suggest anything. Like Matt said, there are some cheaper prices out there right now due to the fact that companies still have stock. If you need something, maybe it's a good time to buy. If something pops, like if the AI bubble pops, that could be wrong. Like 3 months from now, all of a sudden everything could be nothing. It could be worth zero. I just personally don't see the AI bubble popping right now.
There is one other thing too, I will say, is that I understand that they're like, we're going to go all in on AI and these AI data centers and all this B2B AI stuff. There's two things, is that when I was at Fan Expo in Canada here this year, I was at the ROG booth or the AMD booth, and they were showing some ROG things. And the one guy was like showing me that he was like image generating like little, as a demo, little fake employee badges. And he was saying that the thing is we have no internet here. And I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And he was saying like there's the neural cores and blah, blah, blah. The spiel is all local and it's actually doing it pretty quick. And it did a good job too, in my opinion. I saw they generated one for me. It's like a little promo thing. And they generated some from other people that I watched as well. And I was like, okay, like maybe some of this stuff is going to be offset. Like not everything's going to be in the cloud. Some of it's going to be offset to the consumer, which obviously allows for the weight of this to be distributed, right? Which is a good way to handle things. So that there's that. The other thing is that if the consumers get screwed over too much and no one has good computers and no one can afford the ChatGPT, OpenAI subscription fees and all the rest of it, the back end of their plan falls apart. Like Notion, I'm just picking on them. I don't actually know. I haven't used Notion AI, but Notion has an AI thing. If Notion AI, they're like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. And they go nuts about it and everything. But if no one's buying it, then Notion AI will go away or be sunset or be put on hold for a bit naturally. If no one's using it, no one's buying it, no one's. So like if my point is if the consumer market, if the back falls out of this plan, like they're expecting people to purchase and use AI. If people are like, the heck with this, I'm out of here, then their plan can potentially fall apart and then things would return to normalcy that way. Because if people are like, I can't get computers, I only have old computers, or I'm going to buy a new computer, it's super expensive, so I'm not going to pay you for Copilot. I'm not going to pay you for your ChatGPT. I'm not going to pay for all this garbage. If people are, and they are, well informed these days, there may be a bit of a boycott. And I know there's people boycotting things left and center, but they might just be like, you know what, like the whole market got screwed by this. I'm not doing this. It's possible. There's so much nuance in a market, especially when it's international or even national, if it's a large country. So much nuance that who knows? We're seeing it, and this is my last little point, is we're seeing it in the car industry where cars are like super, super expensive. And there's that one company in the United States that's making a $20,000 truck. Why? Because it's a basic truck. It just freaking goes. It has a thing in the back, like a bed in the back, and you can put stuff in it and it just goes. And I drive an old car. Guess what that car does? It has an AM FM friggin' tuner. It has a CD, which was an option back then. It has a CD player, and it has I'm funny enough dating it. My car is the smoker's package. So I have a whole like smoking suite in there to some extent. Although some of it's missing. But the thing is like that car just goes. Very simple. And I feel like people are starting to realize, yo, I'm friggin' driving. I don't need 875,000 features. Like, but this car can play YouTube. Why? Why? And if you say, because I'm waiting around, use your phone. You have your phone in your pocket. We don't need YouTube on 18 devices on us at all times. What are you doing? Don't watch YouTube in the car when you're driving. What are you doing? I'm using an AM FM tuner. That's just me, though. I know people get mad about that. But the point is, I feel like that like simpler car, that simpler truck is an answer to people that are like, I don't want to pay $100,000 for a truck, $70,000 for a truck, because I'm just driving it. Like I'm just using it to haul stuff. I'm just using it for work. I'm just using it for my commute. I don't need 750,000 entertainment features. And I think that some people are starting to wake up to that. And so we may lose some frills on our computers because people are just not going to buy them.
Yeah, that would be a good outcome, I think. Honestly, we don't need all these frills. It's too much shit going on.
We literally just had an update episode talking about how there's too many updates. Mm-hmm. I just uploaded a clip from our podcast saying I can't be learning 24/7. And you're right. I don't have time to friggin' learn the QuickBooks AI, learn the Notion AI, learn a bit of ChatGPT. Oh, hang on, there's Cursor. Oh, don't forget about Claude. Hang on, Perplexity's over here. Hold up. I do still have work to do on the daily. Like,
yep. I think that's it though, right? I think hopefully we're wrong. I'm wrong, at least. A new factory opens up and we're good to go. Consumers are fine, but I'm pretty pessimistic about the future of consumer electronics right now, and just wanted to talk about that for this episode.
Yeah, fair enough. Tough market right now. We'll see what happens. We've seen this with GPU and Bitcoin and all that and the cryptos. We'll see what happens. But once again, we're in a gloom and doom stage.
All right. I think that's the end of the web news then.
That's it. Yeah.
Doom and gloom.
Yeah, doom and gloom. It's a crazy topic. Mike, it was your web news. Feel free to sign her off with whatever you'd like.
Yeah.
Closing arguments.
I'm gonna sign her off. Hopefully, again, we're wrong and everything is gonna be better. But just keep an eye on the RAM pricing. Keep an eye on your consumer electronic pricing. Maybe again, it might be a good time to buy right now while companies still have stock of their older stuff without the increase. And that's about it. Hopefully, we'll see you again next week. We're gonna have our regular episodes and our web news next week as well. Have a good Saturday. I think this comes out on.
This comes out on Saturdays. Oh, yeah.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.